There's one thing I always meant to ask Jack. Back in the old days, I wanted to know about that doctor of his. The man who appears out of nowhere and saves the world, except sometimes he doesn't. All those times in history when there was no sign of him. I wanted to know why not. But I don't need to ask anymore. I know the answer now. Sometimes the doctor must look at this planet and turn away in shame. I'm recording this in case anyone ever finds it, so you can see. You can see how the world ended.
Hello and welcome to Who Watches Who, a Doctor Who podcast with me, Matthew, and as always, I am joined with...
Yes, hello, I am yes. Yes, hello, I am Scott.
You are yes.
Yes, I am yes. I don't know why I started with yes, but yes, hello,
Yes.
yeah, I'm Scott.
Yes. Yes. And today we are concluding our look into Children of Earth, the Torchwood series, as we are looking at day 5, the final for this series, and one of the best episodes is very good. It's a very good episode of Torchwood.
To be fair, all of the episodes of this miniseries are among the best of, like, Doctor Who in general. Well, not just Torchwood, but...
I find it so strange. My brain doesn't really connect this with Doctor Who in any way.
Yeah, it's hard to make that connection because this is so far removed to what Doctor Who usually deals with, you know? And just the fact this world-shattering event happened, and it's never mentioned on the main show. It's interesting. Amy Pond isn't like, oh, all the kids last year were acting really strange.
Yeah, no, it is... They do a really good job addressing it right at the start of this episode, which we'll get into, but I do think you could watch this with no knowledge of Doctor Who and probably like get just as much, if not more, out of it. You know, like it's just really good. It's just a really good fucked up sci-fi story.
I think you could show this to people who aren't fans of science fiction because this is, as I said before in episode 1, when we covered episode 1, this is more leaning towards the drama end of science fiction. You know, this is what happens when the world has to deal with these big earth-shattering events in such a short space of time, how people react to this kind of stuff going on.
Feels like a really dark episode of like Star Trek.
Star
Trek addresses this sort of stuff where it's like, you know, giant moral dilemmas and how do you do the right thing in an impossible situation and stuff like that. I feel like you'd have to rewrite a lot of it, but you could fit this same sort of main themes and ideas into a Star Trek episode.
Absolutely. Just fucking genius episode of television. That's the end of our podcast. Goodbye.
Thank you for listening. We will see you next week. But before we jump into the episode, Scott, you said you had things to talk about.
Yes, well...
Thingamajoos.
This episode, give me a second actually, because I forgot the other writers' names in this series of Torchwood. Because it's been a while since we've...
Davis.
No, the other two writers. Because it's been a while since
T
we've
and Davis.
been here.
Russell T and Davis.
So I'll say two of the other writers, John Fay and James Moran. One of those two were originally attached to write this episode, and they wrote a very first draft, a very rough first draft. And at the end of this draft, the episode was going to climax with this line: "Tell the professor we need that anti-puberty drug now." And you'll notice There is no anti-puberty drug in the final episode.
Yeah.
So yeah, this rough draft was absolutely awful, apparently. Russell T Davies was super embarrassed that he didn't focus on the ending when he had these meetings in the writer's room, because apparently he just never thought too carefully about how this was going to end. He had most of the beats laid out for the first 4 episodes, but with the final episode, he's like, I guess they win at the end. I think the only thing that was written in stone was that Jack's grandson was going to die. And that was like the basic end point. And so yeah, Russell T Davies is fucking panicking at this stage. It's the 17th of July, 2008. And Russell T Davies realizes he has to write episode 5 himself, as production was nearing. And the original script by John Fay wasn't in a good state. Delaying the production would have cost £250,000, and Russell T Davies stressed to have one more episode to write. The deadline was 2 weeks away, and he was still trying to work out what the final was going to be with the David Tennant episodes. You know, the David Tennant final. He was still trying to figure that out at this point. And 2008 was supposed to be the year where he had very little work to do. He only originally slated to have 2 episodes of Doctor Who at maximum, 2 of his specials. But instead, he now had to oversee this mini-series of Torchwood and write 3 of the episodes. So he's adding on to his workload here, and as we all know,
Classic
Russell T Davies
style.
Yeah. And instead, he gets more work last minute. A 9-hour tone meeting takes place days after he assigns the final episode to himself. A 9-hour tone meeting. Which sounds fun.
Yeah, I'm sure it was a really entertaining conversation.
And so he gets big writer's block here. He winds up going to a cafe. He picks up one newspaper, reads it from beginning to end. He picks up another newspaper, reads it from beginning to end. He picks up another newspaper, reads it from beginning to end. He basically goes through every newspaper that's available in this cafe because he just doesn't want to go home. He just does not want to go home and face that blank screen because he has big writer's block at this point. And once he's read all the papers, he goes back to that first paper, reads it from beginning to end. He just does not want to go home. Which, so after 2 weeks, he made no progress on rewriting episode 3 and 5. He says he was frozen in terror with no idea how the series ends. Which...
Rough.
Yes.
Rough. Yeah.
What is your experience with writer's block, right? Do you find when you have writer's block, do you find that you just procrastinate a lot, or you just do other tasks?
I mean, yeah, that's the glory of writer's block is you end up not wanting to write or do any sort of writing. So, like, even the task of opening up the software which has the script or the prose or whatever it is you're working on it suddenly becomes monumental. Like, oh god, I don't want to open this right now. If I open this, I have to write, and I don't want to write because I have no ideas right now. And you'll just like, for me, I just distract myself by like watching things or playing games or doing other things, and it's hard. It's really hard. You have to really force yourself back, because the only way that you're going to really get ideas coming again is either you get a spark of inspiration or you kick your brain back into gear because when you're writing, you're constantly thinking about writing and you're constantly thinking about stories and doing it. The second you stop, starting that engine back up again takes fucking forever. And writing is a miserable thing to do. It is, like, as a writer, it's horrible. It's hellish. It's there's a reason why every Stephen King book is about how terrible being a writer is. And
the reason why he writes so many books in the first place, because he is fueled by cocaine, the classic.
But yeah, no, it's writer's block is not fun, especially if you have a deadline. I've never really had writer's block when I have a deadline. I don't really have many deadlines, which I think is to my own detriment, because I just put stuff off. But
yeah, you're what you're doing is a Douglas Adams thing, and it worked out well for him. So I guess it'll work out well for you.
Sure,
That's how
yeah.
it works,
I mean, he died
right?
at 50, so yeah.
But yeah, I can imagine it's made even worse when you originally just write episode 1 and you're like, yep, that's it. I don't have to worry about episodes 2 till 5. You know, that's me done. And maybe I have to read the scripts, maybe leave a few notes. But I'm done. I'm Onion Rings. I can focus on Doctor Who now. Fuck. What do you mean episode 5 is really terrible?
Yeah, see, the stories like this are, I think, so fascinating. You know, obviously because now we're years removed from the episodes coming out, and it's a lot easier for like Russell T Davies to reflect and talk about things like this. I so cannot wait until we hear all the stuff about Chibnall's era. Because like from the little snippets we know, it was almost exactly like this.
Yeah.
Of deadlines and really short production schedules and very small budgets, and you know, having to do a whole Easter special last minute and running on a first draft. Like that seems fucking insane. Who would ever want to be a fucking professional writer?
Exactly.
What a nightmare. Yeah, what a nightmare.
Absolute
Anyway, you should
nightmare.
buy my book.
So after finishing episode 3 late, Julie Gardner, who is the executive producer, she now runs Bad Wolf, you know, the company that Doctor Who is working with. She's been with the show since 2005, basically. She is the lady who helped make Doctor Who possible. So she manages to get Russell T Davies a slight extension to finish episode 5 by the end of August. On September 1st, 2008, he's only 8 pages in. The deadline was yesterday. So he was writing for 4 days and he only got 8 pages.
Relatable.
Which, if you don't know, 8 pages roughly translates to about 8 minutes of screen time, give or take.
Which also, like, 8 pages of a TV script. Like, 1 page could just be, like, 6 lines of dialogue at times, you know? Like, sometimes a page is not a lot in a script.
Especially at the end of this episode where it's all montages about, you know, Gwen's walking with this kid and the kid falls to the ground or whatever. That's like 4 pages for like a minute of screen time because there's just so much description of what people are doing, where Reese is, where Gwen is. It's a really well written script, to be honest with you, because he accounts for every single character. It's not like he forgets about any character at any point during the stages. He remembers every character. He remembers to write, Reese is doing this, well, Gwen is doing this. Which is how scripts are written. It's impossible. It's so hard to keep track of all these characters. I imagine it was hard for you as well. With how many characters do you have? Like 15 main characters?
I have... There's 2 main characters, and then there's some side characters to them. But for me, I didn't find it too difficult to think about or to remember because I had the benefit of one of my main characters is really alone basically the entire time. He's with like 2 other people and then like 4 or 5 other people very briefly. And another character, she's with a much larger group. But when you have each one of those becomes their own person, it's like, okay, I know who this person is. I know where they're doing and where they're going. And also being able to introduce them kind of like bit by bit.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to deal with. That's what I'm in the process that I'm currently doing, writing another book. I have all those characters right at the beginning, and it's suddenly I have a lot of characters and I have to introduce new characters on top of that, and it becomes a lot. This is why I like George R. R. Martin's never finishing his books. It's just too much. At a certain point it's just like, this is a lot, I don't want
when you introduce like 44 main characters like he does, you know, you have to keep track of where everyone is on this big map at all times. That sounds like an absolute nightmare. Yeah,
not to mention it's also like the most popular thing for a decade. Imagine that pressure. Fuck that. Yeah.
So Russell T Davies winds up having no sleep, and he's just fucking panicking about trying to pay off all the plot points. You know, apparently he's having nightmares of like Peter Capaldi's head just swimming around his head, and Yanto's head and Gwen's head and Jack's head just all swimming around like the end of Caves of Androsani. And everybody's just like, oh fuck, Russell, please write a good ending for me.
It's like the Simpsons Halloween special, and it's the end of the world, and Homer's like, little Marge, little Lisa, and Russell T Davies is like, I'm going to let everyone down, little Capaldi, little Gwen, and the rest, and you see like recent shit.
But yeah, it's at this point where Ben Cook, the person who he's emailing with, Ben Cook asks, hey, when was the original deadline? And Russell T Davies is like, oh, the 30th of June. And this is September 1st. He's having this conversation with. So the deadline's long gone.
Yeah.
And they have to actually start filming the first 3 episodes because there's no way they can delay the production. So they start filming these episodes with no idea what's going to happen in episodes 4 and 5. Everybody is coming up to Russell T Davies at the table read and being like, hey, so Russell, what is going to happen to my character? And Russell's like, don't you worry about it. It'll be fine, don't worry. Wait.
It reminds me of Star Wars, A New Hope, where famously a very messy production and a very bloated script from George Lucas. And they were in the middle of filming when he decided that Obi-Wan Kenobi was going to die. And so he had to rewrite the script and then present that to Alec Guinness, I
think, yeah.
Yeah. Present that to Alec Guinness, like, oh, by the way, your character's going to die. And apparently that pissed him off to no end. And he was like, if I knew going in to this movie that my character was going to die, I would have played the character differently than how I've been playing it up to this point. Which, yeah, I can see from his perspective as like a professional like actor. But from the perspective of wanting realism, nobody knows when they're going to die. I mean, go into the day being like, this is the one, this is it.
I mean, I can see it from his point of view, because if you are force sensitive, maybe you do have an inclination, oh, I am going to die at this day. I have a strong feeling.
Sure, the force can do anything, yeah.
But, you know, it's a force from episode 4, so it's very weak compared to the midi-chlorians.
I can move this lever.
Yeah, but in the case of like Doctor Who, Yanto wouldn't know he's going to die at the end of episode 4. Fucking Frobisher wouldn't know he's going to murder himself and his family in the middle of this episode, you know. So it works out well if the actors don't know where their characters are going to end up.
Yeah, so I'm saying, like the character doesn't know, so why would you know as the actor?
Yeah,
you know. From that sort of perspective.
But yeah, at least with the first 3 scripts, you can tell what the tone is, where the general idea of where the story is heading. You have a basis to make all the sets and all that shit. So you're pretty much fine. You're set up for all of this. So better than nothing, I suppose. So apparently the A button on his keyboard stops working a week later while he's writing. So now he has to manually reinsert the letter every single time. And then when he's doing
hellish.
and this goes on for like a couple of days. I mean, a few days later.
This is clearly the days before like Amazon Prime, because if that happened, it's like, fuck it, I'm just buying a new keyboard. It'll be here tomorrow. Today's a write-off.
And then a few days later, he's writing another email to Ben Cook, and in the email, he manages to hit the A really hard. Oh my god, it's working again. He's like, this is the most exciting thing to happen to me today. The A button is working. That's how low he is.
Jesus.
So he finally finishes this script on the 7th of September 2008, only missing the original June 30th date by 69 days, which is wonderful for Torchwood. That's a perfect number to miss the deadline by.
Yeah, that's pretty nice. Pretty nice.
So that's the end of how he wrote the story, but a month later, on the 14th of October, a producer at BBC sends Russell an email saying that a production company is interested in making a Torchwood musical written by the two men from ABBA. So we could have had a Torchwood musical written by ABBA. Wouldn't that have been insane? I would have loved it.
That's weird. Torchwood's not my like go-to as like a musical. Like, you could maybe get a good musical episode out of it. But yeah.
I mean,
okay. No, I guess I could see it. Like you could do something with it.
Torchwood is already, the first two series anime. That's heavily deep in like queer culture. You know what I mean? Because obviously Captain Jack he's pansexual, isn't he? Yeah, he is. Captain Jack is a pansexual character. Every character in Torchwood is gay. Every character has a gay relationship at some point in Torchwood. And
you could just have like space gas that makes you sing.
And of course, ABBA is kind of queer coded. Like, a lot of gay people really like ABBA. They really love Mamma Mia. So I think the two fit together really well. And plus, you could easily have John Barrowman on stage as Captain Jack Harkness. Like, come on.
Yeah, I'm not against it. I like it. I like an odd musical. It's fine.
But we want to jump into the episode, which isn't as wonderful and happy as a musical could have been. This is quite depressing.
I don't know. I'd like to see this episode as a musical. I think that'd be pretty interesting.
What would the number one hit song come out of this? What would the name of the song be?
I don't. Ooh, that's a difficult question to spring on me out of nowhere. Jesus. I gotta think about that one. Let's see. It feels like it would be something to do with the aliens doing the drugs with the kids. I feel like that would be a song number. Gotta hit that kid. Gotta hit that kid. And it's got that like double entendre. Where it's like.
You could have a choir of kids singing as well, singing in unison.
Oh, yeah.
And just slowly walking into the chamber and
being
used as drugs.
Yeah. And then it's like a big like cough of smoke and splutter after they go in. It's like, oh, that's so good.
It is, 4, 5, 6 is kind of like Audrey 2 from Little Shop of Horrors.
Yeah, for sure. I see that. Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay. Capaldi going to murder his family. I feel like would be that'd be a ballad by itself of him, going through that moral dilemma. We gotta get Hamilton guy. He's got to write this. What's his name?
Lin-Manuel Miranda.
Lin-Manuel Miranda. Yeah.
Did I say the name right or did I say it wrong? I don't know.
No, it sounds right. I said it at the exact same time as you. Lin-Manuel Miranda. Yeah.
Oh God! I know.
We've said his name 3 times now, so like Beetlejuice, he's going to show up. Let's jump into day 5 of Torchwood, Children of Earth.
You asked to see me, sir.
Take a seat.
A terrible day. So I was wondering...
Your name was chosen, John.
Right. Good. In what way chosen?
The inoculation story seems to have gained some currency. Might even be called popular.
Indeed. And what's that got to do with me?
Your children will be inoculated.
I see.
In 2 hours, there'll be selected news media at your house. You will be seen to offer your children for treatment. This will be broadcast on every network channel at 12 o'clock midday.
But there is no inoculation.
This action will help the public and show them no cause for unrest.
You mean I pretend they're going to be inoculated?
Your children will then be taken to one of the designated rendezvous points, and they'll become part of the process. It's our duty now to think beyond this terrible day. And once it's over, the government must be seen as victims of the 456. We must be seen to have lost.
If you put me on camera, I will tell people the truth.
Then your daughters would know where they're going. Best not.
I can't do it, I won't! You can't make me!
In which case, your children will be taken without you.
But you've seen what they do to them! They're just girls, sir! They're just girls! They're not
I'm
like
sorry, John. I'm really very sorry. And I'm really very busy.
So this episode opens up with a really good scene that immediately fixed the large problem I had with the series, which is Gwen addressing the camera, talking about that person that Captain Jack chatted about every now and then, this doctor who would go around saving the world, and where is the doctor now? And she goes on to say that, you know, she thinks that sometimes maybe the doctor looks down on Earth and on humans and turns away in shame at the decisions that they make and the way that they behave with one another. And I think that that's just perfect. That's just an immediately perfect fucking dark but fits the character of the Doctor as well, explanation as to why he's not coming. Yes. You know, the Doctor looks at that, he's like, are you serious? Junky aliens are here to steal your kids, and you're just gonna give it to them. You're not even gonna fight. Fucking hell, why do I bother? You know?
I'm so glad it's not a character who knows the Doctor well who's saying this. This is just somebody who has never met the Doctor before. So she has no idea what he's like. This isn't like the Doctor turning to the camera and being like, nah, I'm not going to fucking help you guys. Fuck off. Like, it's not the Doctor actually doing this. You know, it's not the Doctor choosing not to save humanity here. It's just left up to interpretation, kind of. You know, it's her interpretation of she is talking about him as if he is a god. The whole
But the Doctor is.
Yeah, he is, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because the next episode of Doctor Who to air after this episode of Torchwood was Waters of Mars, which kind of ends in a really dark place for Doctor Who. Not
The
quite
laws
as dark
of time
as
are mine. The laws
Time
of
Lord
time are
Victorious. Buy the
Yeah.
Big Finish box sets. Remember Time Lord Victorious?
mine. Not as well as I remember Doomsday. But no, it's. I mean, Waters of Mars is such a banger episode as well.
It is.
It was. It's a really good explanation, and it. I almost wish that this was in episode 1 as like a flash forward sort of thing, just to get that question immediately out your head, so you can focus in on the rest of, like, because for through episodes 1 through 4, I was just like, yeah, but where's the Doctor though?
Yeah, okay.
You know,
fair, yeah.
and then by episode 5 shows up, it's like, oh, okay, that's a good explanation. I just wish I wish I had it sooner.
I do believe this line of dialogue, or at least part of it, was heavy in the marketing. So everyone who
yeah, it feels like a trailer's
Yeah.
fucking line for sure.
so everybody who walked into this would have been like, yeah, I've seen the trailer. I've seen the trailer repeated a million times on BBC because this is obviously a heavily promoted TV series. Oh god, but yeah, the line itself is fucking incredible, and the way it's shot. Just it's Gwen talking to a camcorder, and we're intercutting with footage of kids being dragged away from their homes and parents screaming at the army men. It's just so devastating to watch. It's kind of like it's like found footage stuff in like the Cloverfield movie. Feels like Cloverfield kind of.
Yeah. Good movie. I love Cloverfield. Really good.
I like the second one. The first one and the third one, not so much.
Cloverfield 1, I think, is really solid. It's really let down by the tiny Statue of Liberty, for me, anyway. It's so distracting, that one scene. But the rest of that movie is, I think, pretty solid, especially for found footage. 10 Cloverfield Lane, really good until the end.
Yeah,
it's really good until the end.
You just have to switch off in the last 4 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, before she leaves the bunker. Yeah.
As soon as she opens that bunker door, turn off the movie.
But fucking John Goodman in that movie, incredible. He is so good in that movie.
Yeah, and then Cloverfield Paradox was definitely a movie that happens.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I do remember some good like body horror stuff and
there's some good stuff in Cloverfield Paradox. All the good stuff is all the non-Cloverfield stuff because like every Cloverfield movie, it didn't start, except for the first one, it didn't start out as a Cloverfield film. They just were like, oh, add this stuff and make it Cloverfield and we can sell it. And in Cloverfield Paradox, it's really egregious. There's one character who shows up on a camera in a background of a scene to be like, it's the Cloverfield Paradox. It's like, oh, you're gonna have monsters everywhere. And the rest of it is just like this like pretty okay sci-fi film. But yeah. Anyway, back to Torchwood. The Prime Minister is on the telly, and he's telling everybody that vaccinations are safe and that your kids are going to get them, and then they can go back to school, they can meet up again, they can mingle, they can socialize. There's nothing to worry about. And 2020 really made this series age interestingly.
Again, fucking watching this like December 27th, 2020, and I'm just watching this like, I fucking lived through this. What the fuck, man? I was just shocked to realize how close it was to stuff that happened during COVID. This episode more is about stuff that happened during World War II. This is kind of when the COVID stuff stops and the World War II stuff starts. With the whole concentrating children and sending them to camps.
But the COVID stuff, I think, is just because it's so fresh still, and it it's the biggest event that we've had to live through so far, in our at least I was, I presume you were, like, do you remember 9/11? I was way too young.
As I feel like I have false memories about 9/11. I vaguely remember seeing it on TV, but I was 3 years old. I didn't comprehend what was happening, and it's probably something I've forgotten about or mixed up with me watching 9/11 footage years after the fact. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I was in Spain when 9/11 happened, and my mum was worried about the fact.
That's the story you told, though.
But obviously being on holiday, she was worried about, are we going to get home? I don't remember when our flights was. It's probably like a week after, but it was still a little bit concerning for her at the time.
No, yeah, I'm sure. I mean, I was 1.
Yeah.
when 9/11. So like I'm not a conscious being.
Sure you
I
were.
have no memories. I have no memories of that time at all. So like for me, like, you know, COVID's probably the biggest thing
Yeah.
that's directly impacted my life as a world event. There's obviously been horrific world events before and since then, but I live a very privileged life.
So the Prime Minister's speech on television, the script has extended dialogue at the start of his speech where he says, much of
What's
what
up,
you...
gamers? Make sure to subscribe.
Yes, he also says that, but afterwards he says,
Yeah.
much of what you have heard has been rumor and hysteria, and in some cases outright lies. It's true. There was an emergency situation last night at Fame's house, but it has been contained with no loss of life. Which,
Rough,
of course,
yeah.
he's fucking lying to the public in a major way here. But I believe this line was cut because Peter Capaldi later says, "We're not releasing any of the names, not yet." Not yet, indicating they will eventually release the names. So the lie at the start feels like it wouldn't have worked in the final script, because why lie if you are planning on releasing the names at a later stage?
Yeah. No, it makes sense for that line to be cut for sure. Also, a really weird way to open up your chat to the public as the Prime Minister, but he goes on, and as ever, we see some characters watching this, like Yanto's sister and Peter Capaldi's wife, both of whom are like, "No kids, you're not going anywhere, by the way, because I don't trust this, or I've been told explicitly that you're not going there." And Yanto's sister gets her family to run off to tell the neighbors to come around to the house because they're not going to go to school either. Pretty good. You know, smart. She's smart. She's a smart character.
Oh god, yeah. Like,
She's got this sussed out.
you know, when you start the series, you don't expect Yanto's sister and brother-in-law to go through a character arc, but they actually do go through a character arc, even though they probably have like under 15 minutes of screen, probably under 10 minutes of screen time, but they do
really
have
good.
a
They're
clear
really good.
character arc. You know, they're really good. Even in this scene, there's some good comic relief where Johnny's still like, I still want 10 quid a kid. This whole 10 quid a quid thing.
10 kid a quid.
Fuck off.
There's a really interesting scene as well here when we're back in the cabinet room with the U.S. Army man, embassy man. I don't know what his actual job is, but he's the guy that's...
Yeah, he's the guy who's going to be in the Sea Devil spin-off.
Yeah.
His name is Pierce, and...
and he's directly taking point here. He's directly taking charge and being like, okay, like, I'm going to make sure the troops are organized and we're getting these kids, like, because I don't trust you, UK government, to do this, so the US is stepping in and I'm controlling that on their behalf. And it's going to be really interesting if they address that in the war between the land and the sea. That this dude tried to sell out a bunch of kids to some aliens, you know? Yeah.
And also he's like openly blackmailing these soldiers, doing the kidnapping essentially, because he says,
do it or I'll do it to your kids.
Yeah, any soldier refusing to do his duty will make his own family liable, which is, oh my god, that's fucking
brutal. Yeah.
So that needs to be addressed in some way, you know. Maybe he's learned from his experience. Obviously, we can't. Yeah.
Unless he's playing a twin. That was my twin brother. Or that was my cousin. That wasn't me. That was my weird cousin.
But I am very curious to see what he's going to be like in the war between the land and the sea, because
such a clunky title. I fucking hate it.
It is.
It's
But
doesn't flow. It doesn't come off the, like, it's like I have to think about it every time I go to say it, you know?
But I am curious to see if they're going to progress his character, because obviously he's fucking going to have changed in the last 15 years. He's going to have to grow from this experience, you know. So it's going to be interesting to see how he interacts with the Sea Devils, for example.
Or if he's become more corrupt, perhaps. You know, maybe he's even more of a, no, we've just got to do what's got to be done. You know, he's even more pragmatic and even more disconnected because he's just continued to rise up the ranks, maybe.
But yeah,
maybe he's even an antagonist in the series.
Maybe,
you know? like you know, yeah.
Yeah, you know, Unit could be trying to help the Sea Devils while he comes in and is like, no, you people have fucking helped these aliens before. We have to go in guns a-blazing. This is...
maybe he's American.
Yeah.
I saw a theory on Twitter talking about like maybe this is what the plot's going to be about, and it was like maybe the Sea Devils are rejecting all of the plastic and pollution and are taking it as like an act of war against. So it's the war between the land and the sea because the land keeps polluting into the sea. And so maybe it's got something to do with that, and maybe he's like, no, fuck these Sea Devils, my sea, I can throw as many fucking plastic bottles as I want.
But I am very interested to see what Russell T Davies does with his character now, because he has to have the impossible task of bringing this character back after 15 years to a brand new show entirely, and somehow address what happened before, while also not addressing what happened before, because that alienates a lot of the audience if you go really deep into the waters of what happened in Children of Earth.
It's really interesting. I wonder how Star Wars gets away with it. Yeah, like, you know, like you're someone who's not seen Clone Wars or anything like that, you know.
I've seen Clone Wars. I've seen the first 6 seasons.
All of it?
I didn't see the final season, but I've seen most of Clone Wars.
Final season's very good. Okay, well, maybe it's not the best perspective then, because I'm curious as to like if you're someone who's never heard of Ahsoka, or who's never heard of the Darksaber, or who's never heard of like the 1,000 plot points that get brought up in the Clone Wars and then get addressed in the live action shows. Like, are you not just sat there like, what the fuck are they talking about?
Yeah, you know, a lot of people have been complaining about having to do so much homework with Star Wars and the MCU these days, because, you know, if you want to watch Agatha all along, you have to watch WandaVision, and to watch WandaVision you have to watch Avengers Age of Ultron, for example.
That's just comic books though at that point.
I know,
what the MCU is like getting in on grounds when, like, because it started when we were kids. So for us, it's like getting in on ground zero, day one of the first ever Marvel comic published. You know, so we're able to just sit and we're there like, awesome. Issue 1, issue 2, issue 3 comes out at a steady pace. Perfect. But if you're born 5 years later, oh no, issue 300 is out. I don't want to go back and look at the other ones, you know. and so it becomes this already giant, if you just wrong time, wrong place to get into it sort of thing. But no,
I've heard a common complaint of Star Wars being, okay, so in order to watch the TV show Ahsoka, I have to watch the Clone Wars, but a decade ago, people were telling me this wasn't really canon because it's animated, it's not on the levels of the movies, but now it suddenly is on the level of the movies. Like, make up your fucking mind. You know what I mean?
Star Wars is like a wine, you know? When it's brand new, it's not really, it's like, but if you let it age, if you give it some time, you let it breathe a bit, suddenly it becomes, this is perfect. And Clone Wars is genuinely phenomenal. Fucking excellent.
Yes. TV. Especially seasons 3 to 6.
Seasons 3 onwards are like fucking just like insane that it was a kid show. And marketed as like some of the storylines is fucked up.
Oh god, there's the storyline where it's basically The Thing, but it's Star Wars. Incredible.
That one's great. Yeah, I had a friend around Sean recently, like a couple months ago, and he's never seen the Clone Wars. And I was like, okay, I really want to sell you on this show, so I'm just gonna give you. We're just gonna watch one, because like every 3 episodes is a story, part 1, part 2, part 3. I was like, we're just gonna watch one arc, and it's one of my favorite arcs. It's one that I think about all the goddamn time, which is the one with the Jedi who's turned against the Republic and the clones, and he leads the clones in a battle against themselves. So he's forcing them to shoot themselves. The Battle of whatever the fuck, I forget what it was called.
I vaguely recall that one. Yeah,
and it's just so it's stunning looking. For one, the animation in it's insane, but it's just like a war drama. It's just a really fucked up war drama, and it's just brilliant. Absolutely incredible TV.
And this shit used to air on Cartoon Network of all
I
places.
know.
Back when Cartoon
watch
Network...
this eating cereal. Like,
back when Cartoon Network had these action shows, like Ben 10 was kind of actiony, especially like Alien Force and the series that followed
Ultimate
after
Alien.
that.
Yeah, Ultimate Alien.
That's when I kind of jumped off of Ben 10, because it became hard to keep up with Ben 10, because Cartoon Network would air them in any random order, and also they would never tell you what episodes were actually on, so it became impossible to try and keep up with the series. But
yeah. No, I watched a lot of Ben 10 as a kid. I watched all of Ben 10, Alien Force, and Ultimate Alien. And that's when I dropped off, because they rebooted it after that, and I was like, I think they've rebooted it again since then as well.
Yeah,
so fucking
the TV show after Ultimate Alien was kind of more cartoony, and also it had older Ben as like a 16-year-old, and it also kept on jumping back to Ben as a 10-year-old, and it would constantly go between the two Bens, which was kind of weird.
Yeah. Anyway, welcome to Who Watches Ben 10.
We should actually do that.
I have no real desire to watch Ben 10 again. I don't imagine it's aged great. I don't imagine it's as good as like the Clone Wars was.
Oh, dude, I listened to the theme song again a few months ago.
Ben 10, he's a kid and he likes to have fun.
Yes, you know
it. Gets the job done. 10, and it tells you all the aliens that it is. I like the little green,
fucking
the
genius.
Green guy was my favorite.
Fucking genius
terrifying
concept. Ben 10.
Oh yeah.
Ben 10 Nissen. He's 10 years old. He has 10
Kevin
aliens.
Kevin Levin. He's got 11. He's evil. Then he turns into a good guy.
Oh, genius concept.
Yeah, what a silly show. We get a scene with the unit soldier chatting with slimy guy who built the big cage for the aliens, who's like, it smells like death in here, and he's like, yeah, it does. And he's like, how did you survive? And he's like, I just stayed back. That's just what I do my whole life, and it just keeps working.
He's like a cockroach, dude. He just somehow survives. He steals the last hazmat suit, and fuck him. Just the moments where he gets punched and shot in this episode are great, because he fucking deserves it. He is like the least likable character. Even the Prime Minister does have certain moments.
It's interesting that he manages to play such a slimy character, but he doesn't directly do anything wrong. Like
he's
just slimy. He's just a weird guy.
He does laugh and smile in people's faces when it comes to talking about their children gonna die.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's got no empathy, but he doesn't that's not a crime. He's not killing them himself. That's the people above him. I mean, he's not even issuing the orders. Technically speaking, this guy did nothing wrong. That's all I'm saying.
He is like 90% of the people who work in politician offices.
Yeah. But the unit guy continues on to speak with the aliens inside their big gassy canister, and he's like, hey, what are you even doing with the kids, by the way? Just like, how are you gonna take them? And they're like, oh, we'll just zap them up in a big laser beam, like how we got here. And he's like, all right, cool. And what are you gonna do with them when you take them? And it's like, we're gonna hit that shit so hard. We're gonna get fucking high, boy. And they go on to explain that the kids are full of chemicals, and the chemicals feel good. As someone who's a expert in chemicals feeling good, I suddenly empathize with the aliens. I want them to succeed, but no, it's a really interesting twist on that. This is like, you know, they're just like a drug addict coming back for like, hey, one more hit. You know, we could just get one more. You know, what if we went in big? It's like Breaking Bad if we were watching this from the aliens' perspective. Yeah, you know.
And plus, it makes, you know, all the things about giving over the children even worse, because there is no benefit at all what's happening here. I mean, there is a benefit to the aliens, I guess.
They're just getting high. They have no respect for the humans or their children as a species or as a living creature, because they're just seeing them as a drug. It's just like, oh, this is like, we're better than this. You know, it's like if I look down at whatever narcotics I might possess and be like, fuck yeah, this is great. I don't think this is a living thing with thoughts and feelings. I think I'm gonna light this on fire. Hell yeah, you know. And it's that idea that the humans are being complicit in that. Like, oh shit, yeah. Like, we know we aren't like, you're not giving them for medicine. They're not curing something. They're not there to, you know, benefit technology. They're not just being lifted at random to have a higher plane of living. They're just fucking tight. It's just tight.
and they're basically fucking chained to the alien for, you know, 40 years. That child has been with the alien, just getting his fucking
his
juices
chemicals
sucked.
His chemicals just fucking yum inhaled. You know, which is. If it didn't look so painful, maybe it's not the worst life. But they don't make it look pleasant, do they? Yeah.
But yeah, I did actually foreshadow this last episode. I don't know if you remember it, but at one point I'm like, oh, I really love this series of Torchwood. Just pop it into my veins like a drug.
Oh,
that was me referencing this twist.
Okay. I don't remember you saying that. I didn't catch on to it when you did say it, so just whoosh.
But also, yeah, it explains why they're constantly vomiting. It explains why they behave so erratically, you know. They're just crazy people. They're just crazy drug addicts. They have no sense of, like, calmness. They're just not chill.
Yeah, they are just not chill at all. They just want to get high, you know. And I guess maybe after 40 years, it doesn't hit as hard as it did when they're fresh. You know, you need a fresh supply in, which is rough. It's rough. We get a scene with Peter Capaldi, John Barrowman,
Eve Miles.
Eve Miles, and real hard question, who plays Capaldi's secretary? Without Googling it.
Oh, I have to Google it. Susan Brown, which is the most bland name ever. I'm sorry, Susan Brown, if you're listening to this, but
your name literally has Brown in it. But yeah, it's them all basically sitting at a table, and talking about how Torchwood can't win. You know, like you just have to let us do our job, Torchwood, because you tried and you failed. Yeah, you fucked up.
Yeah, basically Capaldi is like, oh, do you really want to go public with all the information you found? The world is going to fucking hell anyway by the end of the day. You'll just make it go to hell quicker, you know. And you know, Jack is like, he's right. There's nothing we can do about this. There's nothing we can do to save the day. And Gwen just has a big old cry, and oh, fucking hell.
She does.
Eve Miles is such a great actress. She could just, her eyes are just one of the most amazing pairs of eyes on any actor. You know, like when she cries, she really cries. When she emotes, her eyes are just amazing.
Her performance is really good. Especially she phones up Reese, and she's like, they killed them, by the way, and not just Clem, but they killed Yanto as well. And when she goes to say Yanto, she whispers it because she starts getting so caught up in saying, like, she can't even really say it out loud. She doesn't want to. It makes it that much more real to say the words out loud, you know. So she has to whisper them. It's just an excellent tiny little bit of performance detail that just helps sell it even more. It's just absolutely fantastic.
She is so fucking good in this show. I need to watch more stuff.
Everyone is very good in this show. Like, especially this season.
Yes.
Particularly, everybody is firing on all fucking fucking cylinders this season.
There's even scenes later on in the episode where characters have like one line. It's all the parents and all the teachers in that montage later on in the episode as the kids are being dragged away. And all of the parents are like crying and they're sobbing and they're just begging the army men for the kids back. And every one of those actresses and actors fucking do an amazing job. Like, they have one line and they completely sell the emotion. It's incredible.
Yeah, no, it is superb. I mean, this episode as well, I've been saying it all series, but Capaldi is just on a next level.
Oh,
he's
God.
He's like, everyone is doing really good, and he's head and shoulders above them. You know, like, he is just, and we'll get into his scenes as they come up really soon, but like, he has a very long scene where he just stares at a man. And it's some of the best acting I've ever seen on television.
Yeah, Capaldi really is one of the best guest actors of Doctor Who, which is weird to say because he fucking became the Doctor.
He's also one of the best doctors on Doctor Who.
Yes.
He's just superb.
Oh God, I need. The Devil's Hour is coming back next month. You need to watch that show. He's really good in it.
Yeah, I do need to watch that show.
It's pretty
Who
good.
has the time?
I know.
But Jack basically says that he's willing to concede defeat, but he wants them to do him like one last kindness before the world turns to shit and send Gwen home. You know, just get her away from the center of all this disaster because he can't stand to look at her anymore. It's just breaking his heart. And so they comply and they send Gwen off in a helicopter as Captain Jack gets handcuffed and sent into jail, where also that lady who was interning is Gwen.
Lois.
We were just talking about Ben 10. No, not but Lois. Haha. Yes, sorry. Gwen's the main character of the show. Lois. We were talking about Family Guy. Hey, yes. Lois.
Oh dear.
Yeah. But yeah, she's also there, and that's where she stays the entire time. She doesn't have anything to do anymore. Her character has served its purpose. Yeah. But I kind of like that they didn't just say she's in jail and then didn't give her any lines. Like, they still were like, oh, you can still be here, you can still act, you can still like get a paycheck.
Yeah, and also her one final thing that does save the day is she hands over the contact lenses to Bridget, and Bridget uses that to catch the Prime Minister red-handed, you know what I mean? So she does have a huge thing. She is involved in the final of the storyline, but she just sits and listens in this jail, and she does yell for Captain Jack Harkness. She's like, what the fuck are we gonna do? We need to get out of here. What are we gonna do? And Captain Jack is just defeated. He's all alone. He's just defeated, and there's no answers. He can do nothing to save the day. He can't think of anything.
You just it's the end. They've lost, you know, so things are just going to continue to be miserable. And they continue to be miserable for Captain Jack's daughter. She shows up briefly in this scene where she is getting shown on a TV the footage of what the aliens are doing with the kids. It's a very short scene, and I think her performance is great.
Yeah.
Where she's staring watching this, and she's kind of smiling, but she's kind of frozen, where it's this like, I don't believe what I'm seeing. You know, like you're seeing something so insane that you just have no idea, like, how do I react to this? What do I do? You just freeze. And it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. It's a great little scene.
She fucking carries the climax scene. Like, fucking hell. Her banging on the window is heartbreaking. She's a really good actress. Oh my god. Just everyone in this season.
Everyone's good. Everyone's good. Everyone's good. Everyone is good. Yeah. And speaking of everyone being good, we get potentially the best scene in the episode. It is like, there's a lot of good scenes in this episode, but this one in particular is phenomenal, where Capaldi comes into the office of the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister goes on to tell him that there needs to be a demonstration of the vaccine, because the vaccine story is getting very popular. So you've been chosen, and so your daughters are going to get the vaccine. And Capaldi takes a minute to put this together in his head, and he's like, oh, okay, that doesn't sound, there's not really a vaccine, so you want me to pretend that my family's getting a vaccine on camera? And it's like, okay, I could do that. That's fine.
Yeah, the first thing the Prime Minister says is, your name was chosen, and Peter Capaldi is like, right, good. Oh wait, in what way? You know, he just does not understand. He just cannot process what's going on in this scene, because he hasn't slept a fucking wink these last 4 days. Like, he has had no sleep. He's also dealing with a lot of stress. The last thing in the world he would expect is to be marched into the Prime Minister's office and basically be told, oh yeah, you have to hand over your kids to these bloodthirsty aliens.
Especially after you've just been in the room where they've said everybody in this room's kids are fine.
Yep.
But the Prime Minister goes on. He's like, okay, and then after they receive their vaccine, they will be taken to the processing facility and the camps, and they will be dealt with the rest of them. And Capaldi takes a minute again. He just stares at the Prime Minister. They're like, he can't. And there's so much in this performance. You know, he's like the Prime Minister the whole time isn't looking at Capaldi.
Yeah.
He's looking down at whatever piece of paper is in front of him, because he's delivering this terrible, horrible, like, he's basically saying, I'm going to murder your kids. And Capaldi stares directly at him, like he is like, you know, like, what the fuck, this guy is gonna kill my kids, what the fuck? And he's just staring at him, and he's like, if you put me in front of a camera, I'm gonna tell everybody, just straight away, which is like, that, like, banger move. That's exactly what's gonna do. And immediately the Prime Minister's just like, well, then your daughters would know what's about to happen to them. That doesn't sound very good, does it? Best not. And it's like, fucking Jesus Christ. Even if you to release the news now to the public, there's no stopping this train. The kids are going. They're fucking, it's done. And again, Capaldi just stares at him. And it's fucking incredible. Like... There is a moment when he's staring at him where his eyebrows are a bit like, one is up and he's looking. It's like oh my god, that's the doctor.
And also just the fact, again, like, all the Prime Minister and Peter Capaldi scenes, no music. It's just complete silence every time they stop speaking, and you're just left with the absence of sound, and it feels isolating, and it just feels daunting. It's
a really quiet dread, you know, where like there's nothing else happening, and the entire time you're just sitting there with like a pit in your stomach, like, holy fuck, I can't believe that this is what they're like fucking saying. And one of the only times the Prime Minister looks up at Capaldi is when he says, I'm really very sorry, you know, and then he's like, but I'm also really very busy. And he looks back down at his paperwork and sends Capaldi out the room, you know, like it's subtle little bits of acting. It's superb. And for whatever reason, maybe it's just because Keir Starmer's new to the office.
Yeah.
And this came out during a time of a Labour government. I imagine this scene with Keir Starmer in that seat. Or like, imagine Keir Starmer sitting there. He's like, I'm going to have to kill your kids, though. Like, the Tories ruin the economy so much. We've got to kill your kids, I'm afraid. Like,
Which is something that probably would happen, to be honest.
yeah.
I mean,
but
not again.
The Prime Minister in this series is potentially, or no, he definitely. Besides John Sim, he's the best. Although John Sim's a very different performance for a Prime Minister, but I think he's the best on-camera Prime Minister Doctor Who's had. Harriet Jones, but she was very brief.
Yeah,
she's like a Liz Truss of prime ministers for Doctor Who.
I always feel like they removed her from the equation way too soon. She could have been she could have been a recurring character throughout the first 4 seasons. You know what I mean? She could have just popped up like 3 or 4 episodes every season. I think she could have just been a really good. She could have been the unit, the kind of unit from the early era.
They're literally like, oh, you're one of the best prime ministers ever. And like 2-3 episodes later, doesn't she look tired?
Yeah.
Why don't you just fuck off, Harriet? Yeah? Just fuck off.
It's a shame, but yeah, this guy, I mean, we haven't really had too much focus on prime ministers in Doctor Who. Like, that one did get murdered by the Daleks like 5 minutes after being introduced.
Yeah, that was a pretty iconic one. Did the Prime Minister show up in the new series? I feel like
new
they
series.
did.
I mean, we did have Gwillem, whatever his name was.
Oh, that was it. Yeah. Roger Ap Gwillem.
Yeah, who...
the worst Prime Minister in history!
His performance was very good, I must say, but the character needed a lot more development. But yeah, I would agree with you. This Prime Minister is probably the best in Doctor Who. It feels real. It's not the maniacal laughing.
It does feel real. Yeah. This guy feels like a British Prime Minister.
Yes.
Where like mostly it's just dry as fuck and miserable and bureaucratic, and then also saying some of the most horrific things you've ever heard a human being say. Which is the job of a Prime Minister. And Capaldi leaves and asks his secretary to get him a Requisition 31 form. And she's like, oh, what do you need that for? And he's like, just please Requisition 31. That's all I need.
And he also avoids all eye contact with her as well.
Yeah.
She's aware of the full situation as well. She knows. Well, not the full situation, but she's aware enough to pick up context clues. Like, she knows Capaldi is gonna fucking murder himself.
I mean, why else would you ask for a gun?
Yeah.
Also, can he get a gun?
I don't know.
I don't feel like he yeah. I don't think he should be able to get one. But
yeah, you're Mr. Politic man, so I'm leaving it with you here, but I don't know.
I can't think of a single situation in which our laws would be totally chill with a random member of parliament, not even an elected member. Like, he's just like one of the like house rats that go around do everything. I forget their official term, but like there's no way in fucking hell they're letting him get guns in this country. Are very much like you need to be trained and be in either the military or the armed police to get them. Not just anybody can get them. The Prime Minister can't go and get an AK-47 out the back shed of Parliament whenever he fucking feels like it. That would be insane. So it was a little point that I didn't even catch when I first saw it, because when he says Requisition 31, I have no idea what that means. I have no idea what he's talking about.
But also, this is a fictional government in a way. This is a government that have dealt with aliens for many decades. There's
Yeah.
different rules and laws, and this is
Sure.
fiction.
Sure, yeah, sure. This is fiction, and this is what equates to a nitpick. But it seems like a really weird way
Yeah,
for
I
him
know
to
what you
get a
mean.
gun.
But
When
also,
you could just show him stealing something from Torchwood. Torchwood have a shit ton of guns, you know, or he just steals something from the armed police. Like he's just extra sneaky, or you know, he like bullshits his way. There isn't just like, oh, you just fill out this form, the murder your family form. Oh yeah, we'll get you the murder your family form. It's
but also, it does tell you a lot that we are kind of reaching to find flaws in this series, because most of our flaws have been, oh, that's not how the contact lenses were presented before this, but it's still a really fucking compelling scene. I'm still really gripped, you know. It's
yeah. I just hope someone was fired for this blunder.
I hope Russell T Davies fired himself.
Yeah.
But the fucking way Peter Capaldi sits on this bench when she leaves, like he's just all stiff, and he's like a robot almost. His world is collapsing around him, and he just can't process this. He looks like he's gonna be fucking sick. And it's just...
and when he goes to sit down, he's almost like collapses into the chair, you know, like his legs don't move, his body just falls.
It's such a masterpiece of a performance. He is just killing it. Not yet, though.
Yeah. We then go on to a scene with Gwen and Reese and her cop buddy, who has the name... Ooh.
CBeebies show.
CBeebies show.
In like 2002, it stops motion. His best friend is a teddy bear. Lucy Liu is also his best friend. Maybe they fuck. He wears like striped pajamas, like the boy in the striped pajamas, but he's not a Jew.
This is adding even more complications to it. Lucy Liu, isn't it?
Andy Pandy. His name is Andy.
Andy, yes.
Yeah.
Lucy Liu was in Andy Pandy?
I believe
Really?
Lucy Liu. I believe there was a character called Lucy Liu. Maybe I'm mixing it up with a
Luby Liu, song
Luby
by Andy
Liu.
Pandy.
Fuck.
When you said Lucy Liu, I was like, the actress
Yeah, I'm
Lucy
sorry.
Liu was in CBeebies show Andy Pandy.
Luby Liu. I'm sorry, it's Luby Liu, which I was close.
God, fucking looking at Andy Pandy is such a fucking nostalgic flashback. That's wild. God damn. A simpler time, a more innocent time.
I think we're talking about the 2002.
The 2000s,
not the original.
reboot. Yeah.
Andy Pandy.
Yeah, not the
from
1950 Andy Pandy, but the Andy Pandy from CBeebies in color. Yeah.
But yeah, they do a certain thing in this episode where they have a really devastating scene with Peter Capaldi, and then they cut to Andy, where Andy is like a comedic character. He's not really in the loop about what's happening, so his comedic timing, it makes sense why he would be making jokes and being a bit saucy. He doesn't understand the full context of what's going on in the world. He's in the dark. He's the only character who's allowed to be comedic in this episode, I think.
Yeah, and also he has a great performance in this episode. The
Yeah,
scenes with the riots when he has to, he's like,
God.
"Fuck, do I attack? Do I not?" And then he like that bit. I was like, "Fuck yeah!" But we'll get to that when we get there. He's great in this episode. But this is where he finds out that Gwen is pregnant, and he makes a little joke about like, "Oh, who's the father?" Which Reese isn't very happy about, and then Gwen. Ever the fucking, able to read the room, she's like, yeah, having a kid's a fucking nightmare. What a terrible nightmare mistake this was. And Reese is like, what are you talking about? A terrible nightmare mistake. And she's like, the world's so fucked up, Reese. Don't you know the world is fucked? And that's how that scene kind of ends. And they come back to this back and forth a little bit throughout this episode, which I think... it maybe doesn't get enough time to breathe because there's so many other things going on with it. But like, because they touch on like, oh, maybe Gwen wants an abortion, and then immediately they're like, no, she was just being dramatic. Which like maybe explore that. Maybe that's a cool, especially in an episode about children disappearing and the moral implications of all those things. Like I think it would be really difficult to talk about, but a really interesting dynamic to add in the conversation of abortion into it. Maybe it's just too much for how little you've got happening.
Yeah, it absolutely is too much at this stage of the show, but I am
introduce it later in.
I am glad they're introducing this element. They're reminding us, oh yeah, she's pregnant. That makes what she does in this episode so much more impactful by trying to save those fucking kids. It's a really genius way to take her character. Her character, by the way, it only took Russell T Davies 3 days before he finished the script to realize, oh fucking shit, Yanto's kids. I could make Gwen go to Yanto's kids. like Russell D Davies completely forgot about this element, and he just decided to put it together at last minute, and it makes perfect sense for her to now go to Yanto's nieces and nephews. It makes perfect sense for the plot. It's perfect.
In Miracle Day, does Gwen have a kid? Is that like a driving plot point? Yeah.
Yes, but she has to go to America, so it's like, oh, I have to leave my child.
Bye, baby. You're gone now.
There's also the iconic shot from episode 1 where she's holding her child, her daughter, in one arm, and she's holding a gun out the window. Yeah. And it's kind of like the duplicity of, oh, she has to go back to her Torchwood life and juggle this child. Literally, she juggles.
Literally, way.
Yeah. I don't remember if it goes anywhere interesting. I don't remember much of series 4, to be honest with you. But
yeah,
we'll cross that bridge another day, I guess.
We will indeed. Probably many days away from now, because that's a lot of episodes and they're all very long. But we then get a very fun montage of kids going back to school and soldiers building camps for all the kids to play in and have fun, and barbed wires everywhere to make sure they have fun in the camps and not outside of them, okay?
Also, days after, every kid started saying these weird numbers out of nowhere at the exact same time, this teacher decides it's the perfect time to do numbers.
Let's start saying numbers. Yeah, let's do our times table. Let's do our times table forwards, backwards, and in random order. Which has been a long time since I did my times tables. Well, obviously, like, not in general. I do them all the time whenever I'm, like, doing calculations for buying
on your
things
phone, on your calculator. Yes, sure.
Yeah, it still counts.
Can't do that.
But I don't remember being taught multiplications in primary school this method. This seems like a psychotic way of teaching kids.
But it is a kind of funny irony that the teachers would be doing this days after.
Yeah, all the kids talk in unison at me, please, right now. I don't have any sort of previous trauma from this happening. So the episode continues onwards with Capaldi's secretary coming into the jail cell that Lois is kept in.
Well done.
And she's there basically to just deliver a monologue about John Frobisher.
Oh, not a monologue. Himself. Not a monologue. You realize later, it's a eulogy. She's given a eulogy. You don't realize it until halfway through the eulogy, but it is 100% a eulogy.
Yeah. Where she's talking about when she first met him, how people expected that he wasn't really going to amount to much, but she always kept an eye on him. She always believed that he could do more, could be more, etc., etc. And as she's talking and giving this very good speech, we're cutting in between scenes of Capaldi arriving at his home, hugging his kids, seeing his wife, sending his family upstairs, pulling out a gun, climbing the stairs, closing the door, and then bang, 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 bang. as he presumably shoots all of them and himself.
Yeah.
And it's tragic. It's such a dark ending for a very good character. It's not. I don't think I could have predicted this is where it was going with Frobisher and what he was going to end up doing. And it's just heartbreaking. It's a heartbreaking performance. It's a heartbreaking character. It's really good, really well written.
Yes, the genius of this scene is what I've said about other scenes in this mini series is it doesn't reveal all the information at the start, and as you're listening to Bridget have this conversation with Lois, you eventually begin to pick up on the fact that she's talking about him in past tense. And then we cut to Capaldi taking out the gun as people are beginning to realize she's talking about him in past tense. And then the scene goes on and he walks up the stairs where he just sent his family. And, you know, as 100% of the audience now understanding as he's walking up the stairs, what the fuck is going to happen? And you're just left for it's kind of slow motion now, and he's walking up those stairs in slow motion, and you're just left with horror. You know what's going to happen now, and it's just horrifying. It's so well paced.
Just this lovely feeling of dread.
Yes.
As he closes the door behind him. It's
and the final image we see of his kids is him at the doorway with the gun behind his back, and they're doing the most innocent kid shit ever. They're having a pillow fight. We're just having a great time. And they slowly look up at their dad and realize something is terribly wrong here. It is just also, you know, the bang, 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 pause, bang, just as you imagine Capaldi looking down at what he just fucking did. The horror on his face, the grief in that moment. And it's behind a closed door. He is a good shot, I guess.
Yeah.
But, you know, this scene, I always end up misremembering it. I keep on misremembering it because I feel like we see more than we actually see. Because you could just imagine.
It leaves a lot for the imagination.
Yeah. Because in my imagination, I imagine Peter Capaldi's facial expression as he's looking down at his kids, like, just, oh. And it's like, oh, Peter Capaldi didn't actually act that out. It's just my imagination. It's more horrific because it's left up to your imagination. Because if we just fucking saw the kids getting shot, it's something you become kind of desensitized. Desensitized. It's kind of something you become...
Desexualized would be like you're no longer sexually aroused by it.
Oh, you know what I'm trying to say. You become desensitized about it.
Yeah. Yeah, you do. And, like, not being able to see it and having it be your imagination that fills in, it makes it harder to process as well. Like, when we were watching this back, I asked you, like, who do you think he shot first? Yeah. And it's suddenly like, I don't know. That's brutal. Like, I trying to decide, like, do you shoot the youngest first so it's over quicker, or do you shoot the oldest first so they can't protest? Do you try to get them all done quick? Just, hey, everybody, stand in a line. Stand in a line for me. Let's just put your heads together. The being able to. Sometimes less is more, and I think it takes a really keen hand both on the camera and on the script to know when to not show something. Exactly. When to trust that your audience is going to get it and they're going to feel it without having to see it.
And also you could imagine the time of space between the third bullet going off and the fourth bullet. You know, that little gap there must have been a big debate in the editing suite. There's probably like 20 versions of this scene where it's like, oh, we'll move this a millisecond earlier. You know, that kind of detail. And I feel like it's perfectly paced because you can just imagine the moment, you know, when something happens that's so horrific, and you just kind of like spend an eternity in that moment. Like if you were to trip over, you kind of trip over in slow motion, kind of. You know what I mean? You can see what's happening. Like, just
it's tough. It's tough. After that, we cut to a scene with Andy again. And Gwen rocking up towards Yanto's sister's house. Gwen remembers a scene. She had a flashback scene at some point. Then they go into the house because the sister immediately is like, oh, because Andy's a cop, so you must be here to shut down this illegal daycare I've got set up. Well, you can come and take a look. There's nothing illegal going on in here. And, you know, she's very dismissive and arrogant because there's a policeman officer at her door, and she's living in a down and rough area where policeman officers are quite often the enemy. And so she's treating him as such.
Also,
and when Gwen...
Sorry, what's great about Andy in this scene, we open up on Andy giving off some comic relief. You know, he's like, oh, did they know Yanto was gay? Is that something we should bring up? And that's funny shit. And it happens right after Capaldi murders himself and his fucking family. Like, that's a good use of comic relief. It brings you back into... Because if it wasn't for comic relief, we'd be like... just completely devastated, I feel like. Like, just a little bit of humanity.
You would be miserable throughout so much of this episode if they didn't inject a little bit of humor into it, which you need. You need to be able to be like,
absolutely,
okay, because like an hour of pure misery is tough to get through. But when Gwen sees all of the kids at the house, she flashes back to when Captain Jack hugged her goodbye, and it turns out that he also whispered in her ear, hey, Yanto's got a niece and nephew, make sure you keep them safe, please. Like, don't let them get taken. And suddenly, Gwen has full of reason to exist again. And she's no longer miserable. We then smash cut to montage.
Sorry, and giving her this to do is fucking perfect for her character. As you know, she's expecting a baby. That's perfect. That's perfect maternal instincts kicking in right here. And also it gives her fucking something to do. That's part of the main plot, but it's not overly big because she can't do anything grand. She has to do small things.
At this point, Gwen really is not a driving force in the plot.
Yeah.
She's kind of just like, because their plan failed, so she's got no more attempts. She can no longer try to do anything, so she just has to try and save people. Whereas Captain Jack is still a central moving part in the larger plot in general. But we cut to a montage of kids being stolen. And sent off on an impromptu school trip, you might say, as the parents look on in horror. My only question is, why are the parents still there?
Yeah, because I think, okay, I need to go back to rewatch the scene a little bit, but I think most of the parents are coming out of houses from across the street from the school.
Yeah.
So we would be hearing the army men approach the building. We'd be hearing running, and also why are we fucking sending in the army with fucking guns?
Yeah, why is the army at the school right now?
If the whole thing is, oh yeah, we're going to take these kids, give them injections to make sure they're okay. Why the fuck are you sending in the army with fucking guns? What is going on here? You can't plead in ignorance when you send in the army like this.
Yeah. Okay, I guess you can logic it up. It's not like there's a lot of parents. There's like a handful of them.
Yeah.
That are there shouting and screaming. But the kids get taken away, and we then cut to Yanto's sister, sobbing tears as she is being informed that Yanto is deaded. He died a death, and he's dead. And she wants Gwen and that to just leave. She's done with them. But Gwen's like, no, you need to listen to me. I knew Yanto really well. I worked with him for years, and she tries to rattle off some things about this is Yanto likes coffee, and he talked about his dad and you guys, and she's like, oh, what did he say about the dad? He's like, oh, that he was a master tailor, and she's like, well, actually he worked in Debenhams, so. Clearly, you were not friends with Yanto. You're not you did not know him as you're claiming to know him. Which it's like, oh yeah, he was like an extra for 2 series, wasn't he? Yes. Yeah. Whoops.
Yeah, and this is stuff that was foreshadowed in episode 2, where they're having the conversation, Gwen and Yanto, over the phone about a secret rendezvous point. And Gwen is like, oh, we could go to that ice cream place we went last summer, we could go meet up there. And Yanto was like, that wasn't me. I don't eat ice cream. It gives me a headache, which is a funny line. And it also sets up this moment really fucking well, because Gwen didn't fucking know Yanto. Aside from the coffee, there's nothing she knew about Yanto, which makes the death even more heartbreaking. That there is so much lost time between the two of them, because you want them to be friends. It's depressing as hell.
Sometimes you're just co-workers, sometimes you can't be friends with all your co-workers.
But yeah, we do get a little bit of comic relief as well, where Johnny is like, what about the car? Is the car okay?
Yeah, and after that we cut a bit fast and furious all over the place, but essentially we are being told that, hey, it's time to take the kid. We've got the kids from the schools, but there's a bunch of kids. We got about 60%. There's still a bunch of kids that are not in school, so we're going to have to take them from their homes and send in the army. The American soldier guy is very much in charge of leading this front. He's very much in charge of... Which, okay, I'm really curious. Him being cast in the War Between the Land and Sea makes me more interested in this for sure. But I wonder if... Because by the end of this, it's the Prime Minister who takes the bullet, not him. So like the Prime Minister eats that blame. So what if he's presented as if we don't know about the shit he did in Children on Earth, and then later on in the series of War Between the Land and the Sea, he has to make some really inhumane decisions, and suddenly he's got like no real problem doing it, and it's like it's like we as the audience that saw Torchwood are like, yeah, this guy's a fucking asshole, we know this, but if you've never seen it, you're like, holy shit, what the fuck, this guy's an asshole. But maybe.
Yeah, I'm definitely more focused in on his character than I was before.
Yeah.
Just wondering how they could possibly bring him back after 15 years. Maybe he's learned from this experience. Maybe he hasn't, because, he's done some horrible shit. He fucking sent in the army and was like, hey, you got to do this, otherwise your kids will be in danger. Like, that's fucked up. Yeah. Is that going to be addressed? Probably not, but...
No,
hopefully in some way. You know what I mean?
We don't have a age demographic for the War Between the Land and the Sea yet, do we?
No, but I'm imagining it's going to be more Doctor Who aged.
It's got war in the title. Like it could be slightly more mature and political.
You can be slightly more mature and political with the same age rating as Doctor Who. Doctor Who's done political stories many times. Not obviously to this degree where there's children being murdered on screen, but...
Yeah, is it going to be I suppose it's just interesting because we've never really had one that's about Doctor Who age. We had... Sarah Jane Adventures, which is the younger side, and then Class and Torchwood, which is the older side. We've never really just had the right down the middle. for a spin-off. So yeah.
Yes.
interesting.
Again, we know nothing about the spin-off other than the actors and the basic synopsis of, oh yeah, we're gonna meet the Sea Devils. Sea Devils are back. That's all we know.
Yeah. Yeah. But while this is happening, Captain Jack's daughter is sitting in like what underground base, wherever the fuck they are, as her son is playing football with a bunch of secret agents. Gwen is busy trying to tell everybody like, yo, the army is like, they're coming for your kids, bro. Like you gotta listen to me. Which eventually they do. And then we cut back to the scene with Captain Jack's daughter, and Johnson remembered the name.
You remember the daughter's name? She's in Wonderland.
Alice?
Yes, well done.
Yeah. The Mad Hatter! And she, Johnson's like, I was raised to honor the state and always put the state first and protect the status quo, essentially, and the way things are. And, Alice is like, hey, maybe if the way things are going is not protecting the state, maybe you're kind of going against what the state should be about if we're doing this thing, adding this moral dilemma to it. But we are assured as well that, hey, don't worry, Alice, your son's gonna be okay. We promise.
Yes.
Your kid will not die.
Because Steven's one of the nice kids, is what Johnson says. Johnson is basically like, if you're going to get rid of the 10%, take the 10% you don't want. The kids who will be eventually on the street corners. And Alice turns to her and she has the most horrified expression, like, you don't ever fucking say that to a mother. You take the kids, but you don't want. That's horrifying. Yeah. And Alice also has a great line of, while everyone else just stays indoors, 90% just hugging their kids and not making a sound, just like they did before. Which, obviously, there's a lot of Nazi, World War II Germany imagery in this episode, with all the kids being concentrated into these camps where...
Yeah, it's pretty rough. This scene, and also the scene with Andy where he has to join in the riot, reminded me of a sketch by Lee Mack, which it's about people protesting war and being like, war is wrong and war is bad and awful, and then he shows up, he's like, yeah, except World War II. That one was kind of justified. And they're like, yeah, all war was bad except World War II. We needed to do World War II. And it's just that reminder of, world, in that impossible situation, like, not impossible because it literally happened, in that awful situation of, hey, sometimes you can't turn a blind eye. And we see that again with the scene with Andy coming up, when he's literally standing on the street corner trying to not look at the things happening in front of him, but eventually he has to be like, fuck, sometimes something is bigger than what you are.
Because
you just have to go for it.
Andy is a police officer because he believes in the fucking system, and here he is watching the system forcibly remove these kids from these families for murder, and he has to the scene where he strips off his police uniform is, you've criticized it to me because he's taken off his armor essentially.
I get the metaphor behind it. I understand. I understand the metaphor, but as like a logical character beat, the dumbest fucking movie could have made.
I prefer to look at it in a metaphorical way of, he's stripping everything he has in terms of like ties to the government. He's just a free man now, and he's fighting for what's actually right. Interestingly enough, later on they would do a ACAB storyline with Reese. And with Andy, and Reese is a important character in that. Later on, fucking Andy, by the way, remember Yvonne Hartman from the original Torchwood episode at the end of series 2 of Doctor Who. The blonde lady who owns, who runs Torchwood.
Yes, I do.
She goes out with Andy. She comes in from like an alternate universe, and she and Andy date. It's really interesting.
Good for him. But yeah, that we get this riot scene, which I think is done really well. It's clearly restrained by the budget because it's this one street we're seeing, and like 6 guys versus like 50. Yeah. But it feels dramatic. You're seeing kids get ripped out of buildings, and everyone gets, at first when they were getting told about it, they're like, what are you talking about? And then like he's like, come on, let's go. And they start like amping themselves up, and then the big fight happens. There's the stuff with Andy. We see Reese running with a ton of kids, and Gwen running with a ton of kids, and hiding underneath into like little sheltered bit.
Also,
where they're like...
The fucking director of this, Ross Lynn, is fucking fantastic at coverage and making sure the action is clear enough, because there is a lot going on here, and you are able to follow 100% of it. It's not hard to follow.
Yeah.
And the shaky cam is used really well. It makes it slightly disorientating, but not too disorientating.
Was the shaky cam. It's a lovely little bit of cinematography when Gwen gets basically outed for not knowing Yanto.
Yeah.
The camera goes from a steady static shot to a slow zoom in with a shaky cam on it, where it's suddenly like, Gwen is rattled. She's now nervous. Mm-hmm. She's now like, she's been like, oh no, actually, I didn't know him. You're absolutely right, and that anxiety's back. It's a lovely little bit of storytelling through the camera.
A really well directed series for the budget, for the time. It really fucking holds up. I would say this kind of directing is almost comparable to like Breaking Bad. You don't quite get the same cinematography, you don't quite get the same like color grading, but in terms of just directing the action and stuff, it's really well handled. Ross Lynn is like one of the better Doctor Who directors for sure.
Yeah, no, it is very good. We get a scene with Captain Jack meeting his daughter and grandson in the hallway, and very importantly, they separate the son from the mother in this scene, which is some, it's a secret tool that'll be handy later on. As they continue on into this big chamber bit, where they bring in creepy greasy dude, and she's like, we're gonna try and crack the 456 wavelength. We're gonna figure out like what this message is and how they're doing this thing that they're doing. Greasy guy's like, it can't be done, and then he just gets shot by Johnson. Does he die? Or did he come back? I don't remember at this point.
He doesn't
just
die.
Gets injured. It's like a shot in the leg or something.
Yeah, he's still part of the plot. He's just in a lot of pain, which is fucking deserved. He also earlier when he's captured, he gets the classic gun punch. You know what I mean? Which is perfect. We do like to see Decker in pain. He is the least likable character of this season of television for sure. He deserves all the pain.
He's slimy.
Especially fucking later on when he's like, oh, that kid is gonna fry, and he laughs in the face of Alice. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah. But, there's this great little bit where Johnson is like, do you guys think that you could solve this? If you can solve this, you might be able to save everybody. And Captain Jack and his daughter kind of look at each other, and Captain Jack kind of lights up for a moment, like, holy shit, okay, we have a chance, and he like takes off his coat and he gets straight into work of being like, okay, let's figure out how we're gonna solve this thing. Little does he know the tragedy that's gonna have to be the solution to saving everybody coming up.
Oh, and also, I'm sorry for for going backwards, but Peter Capaldi fucking murdering his family moments, like probably like 3 or 4 hours before Captain Jack saves the day. It's such a dramatic piece of irony that happens. It's kind of like in Romeo and Juliet, where Juliet took the fake poison, and Romeo
kills himself.
Yeah, Romeo's completely convinced she's dead, so he takes real poison. And as he's dying, Juliet fucking wakes up and realizes that he's dying, and then she fucking stabs herself. That's kind of just this kind of similar fucking dramatic irony. It's very,
And then it goes. Then they break into song and go, "Hello, my darling. Hello, my darling. Hello, my darling." Yeah, it's like hot.
yeah,
fuzz.
that's what happens.
Bang! As we then cut to Gwen as she's recording that really dramatic thing about the doctor, and she then says, "Hey, Grease, I wasn't gonna have an abortion. I was just trolling."
I mean, it's a bit more than that. She's finally found hope. Well, again, not really hope, but she finally found her calling in life. She has to keep protecting. She's
I just wish I had more than one scene between them.
Yeah.
Like it was like, 2 scenes ago, she's like, what if I got rid of the baby? Then she's like, wow, that's a lot of kids in this room. Guess I'll keep the baby. And it's pure just this episode. She considers those things when she finds out she's pregnant way at the start of the series,
fucking 5 days ago.
Yeah. And it moves to the back of her mind. I guess there's bigger things going on, but it feels like it doesn't get enough time to really leave an impact for me. But it's well handled, it's well acted, everybody's doing a good job.
There are certain elements of the plot that feel undercooked, but I'd rather it be undercooked than overcooked, like in Miracle Day, where everything everything is such a slog because there's 10 episodes to fill in.
Yeah.
So if you have an interesting concept, you really have to go through it all until it really starts overstaying its welcome.
That's the classic TV way. That's why movies are always better. So things continue onward with the cabinet room discovering that they've managed to get about 80% of the needed kids, but now things are starting to get a bit out of hand. People are rioting a bit more and they're fighting back. So they want to check with the aliens if 80% will do. Which, at what point up until now have they shown any sort of sign that the aliens are willing to compromise on the number?
Yeah, especially when you find out it's drugs, and it's like, you wouldn't go up to somebody and sell them meth and be like, okay, this is only 80% of what I promised you, but still.
Yeah.
Like, fucking, if a meth addict is gonna fucking stab you,
Yeah, it's like, no, give me the math. I'm here for all of the math that you promised to give me. Yeah, or if you're like getting mugged or something, and you're like, okay, what if I just gave you 80% of my wallet? I gotta keep some of it. It's like, no, I have you at knife point. You do what I say.
Yeah.
So that's their answer basically is fuck off, get us the 100%. So Big Soldier Man is like, okay, fuck it, we'll get the 100%. And while this is going on, the really nice acting from the Prime Minister here, he's just sitting down watching everybody do stuff. He's not saying anything, he's not giving orders, he's just sitting and observing as this entire thing moves on around him. And it's, like he's in the highest position besides being royalty that you could achieve in the UK. And he's just sat there. And it's great. He's such a pathetic man.
He is. And we also watch Bridget observing him as well, which is important because we do get a little bit of music we've heard before whenever somebody's putting in the contact lenses. So as your indicator, hey, she has the contact lenses. But not everybody's going to remember the contact lenses were even a thing. Not everybody's going to be aware that she has the contact lenses now. So it is a little bit of a, hey, this is only for the smart people in the audience kind of thing. The people who have been paying attention.
Yeah. We see the army round up a ton of kids, and all their clone buddies in one area.
Yes.
It's a blink and you miss it duplicate shot. It's like, how else are you going to do this? Because getting that many kids in one area is just impractical. I don't think the perspective quite matches the way that the kids are, but it's a little awkward looking. I'm currently desperately scanning to look for any duplicates. I found one so far. I've found one duplicate kid. I think they did a pretty good job of like not only lining up the shots, matching them, but making the time slightly out of sync. So you're not just seeing the same kids doing the same stuff over and over.
I'm looking at the image right now. I am seeing way more duplicates than you do. But also there's a kid who's...
What timestamp are you at? Maybe I've got a lot of
I'm at 42:22.
Okay, no, we're at the exact same one. I can see like a ginger kid who's got like a widow's peak already, like he's already balding. I can see him twice.
There's also a kid with black hair next to the girl with the red shirt. He's the kid also has
the
like
dramatic
a weird hairline. Yeah, and he's also in the background. You can see duplicates for sure. You just
if you pause and look, it's like a spot the difference. Oh man, there's a big one on either side of the soldiers. On the far left and the far right, there's the exact same kid. Right next to their heads, basically.
And there's also one kid who's moving around his head. There's also one kid who's moving around his head frantically like this. He's just constantly doing this in every situation, so you just see a lot of heads moving irregularly. It's really strange.
Honestly, again, it's quite a fun game. I've spotted quite a few at this point.
But again, it's 2009. We don't really have a budget or time.
And it's
kids.
It's like
kids.
1 second. It's legit like 1 second. But while that's happening, Captain Jack is busy trying to figure out, how are we gonna find the aliens? How are we gonna? What is this signal that they're working through? Slimy guy's like, oh, you're trying to do this thing. We tried that thing. Everyone tried that thing. That thing doesn't work. You've got there's a different thing. And then Captain Jack's like, how did they kill Clem? They sent off this different signal. Oh, there's a new sound. What's this new sound that's going on? And as soon as he discovers that new sound, Slimy Guy comes back up and he's like, oh, that's the murder kid sound. That's the you gotta kill one kid actually sound. And I think the performance here is really fucking good. With Alice being like, Dad, no. No, Dad, no. Stop it, no.
At first she's at first she's like, what does he mean? There's a little bit of confusion like we had with Capaldi earlier.
Is it a little bit of confusion, or is it not wanting to believe?
It's both.
Like it's like wanting to be like, okay, I'm not jumping to that conclusion until you explicitly say that that's what you mean.
Yes, it's a little bit of how could you do this? Why would you do this? Why would this be the only option to give over your only grandson? That kind of situation. And also, I can't believe what's happening in front of me. You're talking about giving my kid over to this alien. It's Decker has a fucking devastating line where he just basically laughs in Alice's face and he's like, oh, that child is gonna fry.
It's gonna cook up.
Whoa.
Yeah.
What
And,
a
like,
fucking scumbag.
Jack the whole time is just frozen. Like, he's not looking at anybody, as like you've got the like right and the left, like, you know, the angel and the devil trying to coerce him either way. And it's a really interesting take from Jack's perspective, because obviously it's like a Sophie's Choice, where like eventually you have to make that decision, and it's the right decision to make because you're saving millions at the cost of one, etc., etc. But it has that added little notch of, you know, Jack is also an immortal. How many other kids has he had in the past? Does he really even care about this one? You know, like the inevitability of like, I'm going to outlive you anyway. You know, like this sucks, but I can get over this.
Yeah,
he
does have a line later on when he's obviously talking about traveling the Earth over these last 6 months, and he's like, the whole planet's like a graveyard to him. You know, everybody's gonna die. You know, everything's gonna change in front of him, and he'll remain unchanged. Oh god, it's just really tragic shit for Jack. You know, he has to live with his fucking curse.
Yeah, it's rough. It is rough. We also get some cool stuff. I say cool stuff. Everything kind of builds up to this point of like drama. So when you've got like all this stuff of Alice like screaming about her son being captured, we're also cutting to scenes of the soldiers closing in on Gwen and Reese and chasing them down, and we focus in on one of the girls that gets left behind because she's too scared to run with the group, and she just gets grabbed by some soldiers, and eventually everybody gets tackled and taken down and nabbed by soldiers. As there's the one kid, the grandson, what's he called? What's the grandson called? Stephen.
Yes.
Yeah, Stephen. And you know, they stick him in, and you know, he's just like, hey, what's going on? What you doing? Why am I standing here? You know, Jack, what's happening? And you know, Jack's not saying a single line the entire time until this unnatural screech happens. And I think it's done really well. I find it really strange because all the kids start screeching, but they cut to a little girl, and it sounds like her genuine scream they used, which is a good scream, but it doesn't match any of the other kids' screams. It's like, that was a weird choice. Yeah.
But yeah, that's important to note. When Jack is setting things up and Stephen is like, hey, what's going on, Uncle Jack? He refuses to even look up at Stephen. He refuses to make eye contact. But when Stephen is dying, he refuses to not make eye contact. He fucking watches that shit as some sort of like self-punishment towards himself, I guess. To be like, you know, just to... I guess he is punishing himself. He's forcing himself to live the emotions rather than... Because, you know, there was a conversation... You know, there was a conversation in the flashback where why was Jack chosen to take these 12 kids to the alien? It's because he doesn't care. This is him kind of living up himself, giving himself a punishment for what he did in the 60s, I guess.
Yeah, I also think it's like last bit of respect almost, of like, you know, these are the last moments of your life that I am directly responsible for, so I'm gonna do you the like I'm gonna make sure I see this, you know, I'm doing something horrible, I'm gonna make sure that I remember these last moments of your life, that your sacrifice isn't for nothing. Like, I'm gonna remember this thing that you've done, you know, because nobody else is gonna know that this random fucking kid died to save them. So it's sitting, what, you know, if you're executing someone, you make sure you watch them hang, you watch them as the injection takes them away or whatever, you know, like it's the final rite that you have to do. But yeah, it's rough. It's really good. There's a lot of recurring eye contact is very important in this episode. There's several scenes where watching where characters are looking is very important to what's going on.
Also, fucking great coverage, coverage is
Yeah.
so important, and a lot of TV shows struggle with coverage. Here, it's like, I feel like everything's accounted for. Like, Euros Lynn has a good idea in his head of what he needs, how many shots he needs, because God damn it, this is well directed.
It's good.
But also,
yeah, it is good.
but also, the kid screaming and shaking his head like that could have very easily come across as the most comedic thing ever. It's the most lamest way to end your TV series. Oh, you're making this really silly by making this kid shake his head around a lot, but it's fucking devastating. It's really well handled. You don't it could have just come across as something that's so cheesy, and it's handled really well.
It is. I think it's helped by the very good soundtrack that's playing.
Yes.
Of just ladies. It's the classic dramatic moment from any noughties movie where suddenly the single lady going da, 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 comes in and you're like, oh my god, it's so scary. It happens in countless movies. Most famous for me is Avatar. Whenever it happens, I just think of every single scene in the Avatar movie. But it's effective. Also, all of Doctor Who during Tennant, that was the entire soundtrack.
Yes. Oh god, just the music of this series is pretty well done. There's no memorable new tracks, but everything else,
the music is good.
Scene.
Yeah.
It's really there's no point where I'm listening to the score and I'm like, oh, that's a shit soundtrack, and it's also not too distracting from what's going on in the episode. It's not like Murray Gold blasting out "I am the Doctor" every 5 minutes.
I think "I Am the Doctor" would go so hard right now.
As a little child is fucking dying.
Yeah, no, it's handled very well, I think, and.
But yeah, also talking about eye contact, everybody in the room except for Jack and Alice look away. Even Decker looks away at some point. Even Decker, who's fucking sadistic, he was 5 minutes ago, he was fucking laughing about this child dying. He can't even watch this. But Alice and Jack are the only ones who can fucking watch this. And God, just poor Alice. Just imagine living with that. This week started with, oh, I never want to see you again, Father. And then throughout the week, she's like, oh shit, he might be dead. Oh my God, no. I want to make contact with him. And then this happens. Holy shit, what a fucking terrible week.
Yeah, honestly, pretty bad week. Pretty bad week. But yeah, so little Steven dies, and that causes all of the aliens to explode and run away. And all of the kids are fine. The 4, 5, 6 are just gone, and everyone's kind of just dumbfounded for a few moments. Okay, so it's over. It's like suddenly waking up the night after and being like, what the fuck did we do? What?
And also what's great about the soundtrack here is complete silence. You're just left with an absence of sound.
It's just that awkward atmosphere of, we all went to a very dark place.
Yes. I remember just watching this literally at the edge of my seat, just watching it just mouth agape. You know what I mean? I fucking did not walk into this series expecting Captain Jack to fucking murder his grandchild. What a way to end this series.
Yeah, it's interesting. It especially, and this is a problem that you've had with Jack after this, is when I next saw I never watched this, so Captain Jack for me has always been kind of one note. He's always just been the same, and when we next see him in Doctor Who, he's just Captain Jack again.
Yep.
He, you never get the hint that he murdered his grandson, and which is an interesting choice. I get why they wouldn't want to bring that up on Doctor Who, but at the same time, Doctor Who's dealt with murder and genocide and hard themes like that, and I think they could have done something with it to make Jack a bit more of a fleshed out character. But
you want to know what they do with Captain Jack in series 4? From what I remember, well, Captain Jack comes back into the lives of Gwen and Reese. And oh my God, wouldn't you believe it? This, the whole Miracle Day event where everybody's becoming immortal. Captain Jack has a secret from his past that he was somehow involved with what's going on right now, which is what they fucking did with Children of Earth. They have no idea how to continue the Jack character after Children of Earth. So they resort to... It's also at the midway point of Series 4 where we discover that Captain Jack has a secret from his past. It was a midway point of Series 3.
He has another secret in his past, yeah.
Yeah, and when Gwen realizes there's a secret from Captain Jack's past, she's just like, we've already been through this. What are you talking about? You just think real hard. What happened in your past that could have caused this? And as an audience member, you're just kind of sitting there thinking, oh, we've kind of done this before with Captain Jack. Are they running out of ideas for this character? And what they reveal about Captain Jack's past is way less significant than handing over 12 children to die. Like, it's way less significant than what happens in Series 3. So it's really not good what we do with Captain Jack after this.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, well. We'll cover it eventually, maybe. But this back to the final parts of this episode, we are with the Prime Minister, who's quite happy. I mean, he's like, well, I think all things considered, chalk it up as a win. Nice one. He's talking about how, we can blame this on the Americans because that guy who likes to deal with sea devils in 15 years' time took charge, and really I just sat back and we didn't do anything wrong. And secretary lady, what is her character name?
Bridget.
Interesting. Bridget is like, hey, yeah, that's cool. By the way, I went to visit Lois in prison. She told me about these super cool spy contact lenses that I'm currently wearing right now and have captured you saying all this stuff about you just caring about yourself and not the people or any of the decisions you made. So how does that make you feel? And again, he's just sat there and he's just frozen. He's just slumped. Yep. He's just like, oh, well, I'm fucked. Game over. And Lois also is fucked. She's just left to rot in prison on espionage charges.
We do. The other lady in the room, I forgot her name, but she's the lady who proposed the idea of getting the really stupid kids, essentially. you know, she's that lady. She kind of steps in and she basically says that Lois is now free. She's going to make sure that Lois gets out. So that's the last we hear of Lois, which is kind of a shame because, I feel like
it's kind of like a nothing send off for the character.
Yeah. But oh well.
Yeah.
She's still got a really good character arc, Lois. It's just her character kind of faded after episode 4, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. She hits the peak, of giving that big revealing monologue, and then she has nothing. But that monologue makes it worth it. We get a heartbreaking scene with Captain Jack and his daughter, where he is sitting in a waiting room somewhere.
Just a corridor.
There's just heaven outside the doors. Just this explosion of light as Alice steps in and stares at him for a second and then steps out again. And no words are exchanged from either of them. They just kind of look at each other. Jack is sitting super stiff and
Yeah.
formally, and it's brilliant. It says so much by saying nothing at all. It's a very good scene.
And that little moment of them looking at each other, you, as an audience member, you kind of hope that there's some kind of understanding that maybe they could go forward as father and daughter, but clearly she fucking wants nothing to do with him, and that's fair enough, I would say.
Yeah. Fuck that guy.
Earlier on, that little moment where Alice is proud of her dad, that little moment where he's stepping in and trying to save the day, and they smile to each other. The script makes mention of that's the first time Jack has smiled in a really long time, and now his happiness is just fucking ripped away from him like this. Devastating.
It is rough. And from there, we travel to 6 months in the future with Gwen and Reese driving in the car, and Gwen is very pregnant as they come out, or she's like 6 months pregnant, and they meet Captain Jack on top of a hill. And, they have this conversation that we were talking about earlier where he's like, the earth is tiny and it's just great. It's just a graveyard. There's just so much death and misery and, history here. I want to go explore the stars. I want to go have fun and regress back to before this series happened, please. Gwen's like, cool, well, here's a vortex manipulator, which, by the way, the vortex manipulator is probably one of the best designed, non-designed items in Doctor Who. It's just a leather fucking strap with a little shitty thing on it. It looks terrible. There's no buttons, nothing, but instantly identifiable. Yeah. Instantly you see it. You're like, oh my God, that's a vortex manipulator. Terrible. But his goodbye is really good. I thought it was. Yeah, his goodbye is so good. We legit don't need to see him again. It feels like a bye forever, Jack. Go have fun in traveling the stars. Yeah.
Again, it's just a shame they bring back his character because they struggle with him in series 4 of Torchwood. They bloody bring him back in series 12 of Doctor Who, and he's the jokey sexual innuendo man again. Like, he's learned nothing from the last 2 series from Torchwood. And then obviously Torchwood does continue on in series 5, series 6, series 7 in Big Finish. He's not part of series 7 because that's after he got cancelled, I guess. Cancelled is the correct term, I guess, because he's no longer can be a part of Doctor Who. That's his end now. Yeah. He has a definitive end now, which is a shame. But I've listened to series 5 and I've listened to half of series 6, and I think we're still struggling with the character. He's not the main character anymore. He kind of dips in and out, so he's only like in half of a season or whatever. So he keeps coming and going, which is a shame. We just don't know what to do with him after this. Which sometimes a character needs to retire, even if they are immortal, or at least put him on the back bench and just... Or maybe 5 years later, I've come up with a really good idea of how to progress Captain Jack,
Or give them layers and a running canon that constantly affects them. Like, the Doctor is essentially the same. Like, they're an immortal character, but the Doctor's always interesting because, one, there's Doctor Who, there's a bunch of stuff we don't know about them, but also because there's that constant tragedy hitting them. Every companion fucking off or dying, the lack of connection being able to form traveling the stars. And, Captain Jack kind of ends up falling into that same bit where it's like, do we need Captain Jack when we have the Doctor? But if you've got a Torchwood series with no Doctor, Captain Jack is your Doctor. He's that character, so just use that blueprint that's already there for you. And he becomes the face of Bo. Explore that. Go on, let's find out how that
Yeah.
happens. Fuck off. Like, you know, my head's growing. Help.
But yeah, the biggest mistake we do with Torchwood in general next season is, we have to do another big storyline. We have to top ourselves. Where they really should have just regressed back to episodic, maybe there's an overarching storyline, but mostly episodic monster of the week kind of stuff. I feel like that's a better.
I don't know if it needs season 4 at all.
Yeah.
Like this feels like such a good end to the show in general. You know, especially with like all of our main characters are dead or gone. Gwen is pregnant. Like everything is over at this point, and a fourth series just kind of feels tacked on at the end.
And also series 4 ends with a cliffhanger that can never be resolved, because the cliffhanger is revolving around a brand new character to Torchwood who is owned entirely by Starz, the American co-producer. So Big Finish can never get the license to this fucking character. So that's I will say
Starz is owned by Disney.
no stop was it?
If you go on Disney Plus, there's a whole Starz fucking section.
That's a different Starz. I'm talking about Starz with a Z. Starz with a Z.
That's the one on Disney Plus, isn't it? Starz with a Z.
No, it's it. Starz with a Z is owned by Lionsgate.
Oh, it's Star is the one on Disney Plus.
Yes, it's confusing because it's a fucking
It's shit. It's such a shit name. It's such a shit name for a company.
But yeah, it's an American premium cable and satellite television network owned by Lionsgate.
Right.
Yeah.
And Lionsgate are owned by Amazon? No, that's MGM.
I think Lionsgate.
They might not be owned by anybody. They might be independent or like own themselves.
I think we're still independent. Oh no, sorry. Lionsgate along with MGM was a. God, just everything is so confusing.
Giant corporations eating each other. It's awesome.
Yeah. But anyway, as I was saying with Torchwood, I think Torchwood Series 5 is way better than Series 4. It's not perfect. I don't think it's great, but they kind of take the episodic format and also do like big political stuff, but it's focused entirely on Cardiff instead. So they'll have storylines about Amazon or like Amazon working conditions, but make it like Torchwood themed,
and how actually Amazon's the good guys by the end, and you the worker are the problem. As Doctor Who told us.
The ending of that is Amazon just fucking burn their employees. They just burn them into ash. There's also like storylines about homelessness, and like the main theme of Series 5 is dealing with all these aliens who are looking for basically refugees to Earth, and Torchwood are the people who kind of have to find peace. You know, they have to make peace between the aliens and people of Cardiff and all that shit. And it's really good. It's really good political stuff. It's also really small, you know, and also it goes back into Torchwood being Torchwood, where it's like overly sexual. There's a new character called Aang, who is a non-binary alien, and they have the power to turn into your sexual fantasies. So if they spend time with you in a room, they basically can transform into your sexual fantasy. And it's Torchwood, shape-shifting alien.
that can go to some dark places.
But there's that really funny moment where, you know, there's an episode about alien hotel, and there's people outside of this hotel who are humans, and we're trying to burn down this hotel, and it's all about immigration and all that shit. It's actually really good political stuff. And they go into this hotel and realize the hotel is sentient. And the way they find out this hotel was sentient is because Aang's sexual organs turn into like an elevator shaft.
Right.
And she feels the pleasure of being filled with people entering her elevator shaft. All
right.
It's actually really funny stuff.
Far out.
Torchwood Series 5 is worth listening to.
But that does take us to the end of Children of Earth. At long last, a series that I think is very good.
Yes.
We spoke a lot about it just now, but I definitely think it's probably the best Torchwood I've ever seen.
Absolutely.
Not even close. Like I want to show this to people that haven't seen Torchwood, just because it's like, this is just TV worth watching. It's just solid TV. It's very good. I very much enjoyed my time with it.
You know, it's fucking, what's the word for it?
All right, it's all right. Fine, whatever.
What's the fucking word for? It's prestige television, I would say.
Right. Yeah.
You know,
It's good.
You got a lot of great actors fucking performing to their best, like Peter Capaldi, Eve Miles, and just like the whole cast is fucking incredible. Every character gets a moment to shine in the spotlight. Every character gets a great character arc. Even the fucking, Reese's brother-in-law gets a character arc where at the end he's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna fight to protect these kids. I don't care about the money anymore. That's a fucking solid character arc, and he only has like 10 minutes of screen time, Just everything about the series. There's some nitpicks I have, but after 6 or 7 times watching through this series, all the emotional moments still hit me really hard. I'm still emotionally engaged with the storyline. It's as if I'm watching it for the first time, and that's pretty incredible for something I've seen 7 times.
That's a lot of times.
Again, it's just fucking fantastic. I would recommend this to anyone. It's really solid television. 5 hours, and it's It's well worth recommending to people. It's spot on. It's like a 9 out of 10, really.
Yeah, 8.5, 9 probably is where I'm sitting.
Do you now see why people consider this to be like the peak of Doctor Who?
See, I don't know if it's the peak of Doctor Who. I definitely would say it's the peak of Torchwood, and I definitely think it's really interesting and really like dark, mature concept. But I think Doctor Who handles larger scaled stuff and bigger ideas in a more interesting way, just because of the nature of its the way that Doctor Who is.
Contrarian.
And, I personally think the peak is Flux, but that is,
oh my god!
No, I don't think it's the peak of Doctor Who. I definitely think it came out during one of the best peaks of Doctor Who, so it's some of the best in the universe of Doctor Who for sure. But I'm hesitant to call anything the best. But I just don't like absolutes. I absolutely hate absolutes.
You just reminded me also, when we went into Flux, I was hoping for some sort of showcase of their characters like this, like Torchwood Children of Earth. I was expecting not as good as Torchwood Children of Earth, but something that could explore the characters in the way that Torchwood Children of Earth explores its characters. And instead, we just had a big old mess of glop. Terrible.
Yeah. Loved it. But that does take us into what are we doing next week? Speaking of terrible, we are looking at the Pyramids of Mars. Next week we'll be looking at parts 1 and 2. The week after, parts 3 and 4. This is a story that I am familiar with. I have seen the cut together version that they made when the final for series 1 was coming out when they reintroduced Sutek. So I was like, I'll go back. And it feels important to watch this before this final happens, so I know who Sutek is. They seem like a really important villain, and this final is going to be really good, right? So I may be coming into this a little bit cynical. Because season 1 has still got a bad taste in my mouth, and Sutek, I hate him. But yeah, we'll see. Maybe it's going to blow my mind. Maybe I'm going to really enjoy it. It's been a very long time since we looked at classic Who. So it's going to be nice to revisit that dumb campness, especially coming off something as miserable and serious as this. Oh
god, yeah. We need a little bit of camp. Like God's sake,
yeah. And 20-minute episodes, brilliant. Instead of
this episode
long.
is insanely long. 2 hours, 20 minutes, something like that. That's insane.
It's gonna be brutal. But yeah, so look forward to that, Pyramids of Mars. If you want to make sure you are able to watch it, subscribe to us on YouTube at Who Watches Who, where every Friday at 8 a.m. thereabouts we upload a new episode. We also are available in audio form on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music. There's an RSS feed. Wherever you listen to podcasts, you can find us. Just search Who Watches Who into that search bar or click one of the links in the description. It is all there. You can buy my book, Can You Taste the Color Orange, anywhere you can buy books, but probably on Amazon. There's currently 4 copies left on Amazon at the time of recording this. So if we could get that to go down to 0, that would be pretty fucking cool, please. So please buy the book so that they have to print more copies of it. That would be pretty nice. Not just for me, but for my wallet. Please consider my wallet when you're purchasing my book. You can follow us on Twitter at Watches Doctor, at Facebook at Who Watches Who, and a bunch of other stuff. We'll see you next week with Pyramids of Mars. Bye.